sick of the crazy? Are you tired of the lies? Well, maybe it's time to get ready for the Republic of the Real, because it's about to get real. It is amazing. Just when you think that the world couldn't get any crazier, you wake up and the next day it's gone up exponentially in its insanity. You know, we live in a time where it would seem that everybody has become a victim. We have a professional victim culture. And we also have real legitimate victims. And we have a lot of victimizers. But when you look at the world around you, do you ever wonder why it is that we arrived here and that it seems like that all of a sudden we have been thrown into a world of utter insanity, chaos, confusion, fear, and it makes no sense. Why do you think it makes no sense? What do you think has happened? Where do you think we are in human history? You know, every single day, I look around me and I observe, and people are pretty normal. You know, if you get away from the computers, right, from online disreality, you'll find out that people are actually living their lives and there's a whole world occurring around you that you've been missing while you've been locked into the digital realm of dystopia world. Now, there is a whole world that's also having all kinds of terrible problems. There's a lot of crazy stuff going on all around the world. But if you never back out of the crazy, get a break from it, readjust your cognitive space, you will never ever see what is right there around you and be able to clear the noise out. Now, the interesting thing is you can tell who's been programmed and by what. You see, we've all been infected by distortions of information. Now, when you really think about last year, the effects of isolation, the effects of being locked up, right? Feeling like a prisoner, the unknowns. When you really look back and contemplate how it affected you, what do you find? What do you see? What do you think you are observing, looking back? You were in a brainwashing chamber for over a year. You were a captive audience. You were a prisoner of digital dystopia. You were forced into a matrix, into a illusionary world that now has infected the real world. It's been imposed by the potentates, right? The pantheon of unelected officials, both in the government and in government agencies and non-for-profits and in academia and in the broader society within the private sector and corporate America. You are living in, quite literally, a world within a world within a world. You are living in a world that has layers of reality that don't necessarily overlap in some ways from a cognitive point of view. In reality, they actually all are superpositional, right? Everybody's in the same timeline, but they don't seem to be in the same time. They don't seem to be living in the same world, the same reality. And it's very, very disorienting to be in such a world, in such a time, in such a place where you have so much of that to deal with every day. We have virtual realities going on in people's heads, which they're playing out in the real world, and which, as they view the world from their own perspectives, their own perceptions, right? It takes what they see, hear, taste, touch, right? What they bring in through their sense gates, and it literally morphs it to the virtual reality in the cognitive space of their own heads. That's why it has a cult-like feel. And the irony is that both sides point at the other side and accuse the other of the same thing. So that makes it even more disorienting, because in some ways that is true. In other ways, it's completely not. It depends on how far you go out in the binary spectrum, right? In terms of the polarities. But if we're really honest about stuff, and we look at things, I mean, there are things on one side or the other that have gone way off the tracks of reality. You see, this is what happens in a hyper-politicized, postmodern, post-truth world that's enforced on the minds, bodies, and souls of the people living at the time. So if you feel cray-cray, right, at times, perplexed, well, I mean, that's normal. You're actually not crazy if you feel crazy at times, right? Your body, your mind is having an adverse reaction to a time and to, a zeitgeist, right? That is legitimately making you feel that way. We're all, to one degree or another, impacted by it. That's why it feels like that we live in an insane asylum. It's lunacy, right? But what is the end game? What is the end game usually in times of turmoil, chaos, right? Confusion and fear? Well, it always boils down to a few things, which I bring up almost in every talk. And that is wealth, power, control, influence, right? Those things drive a lot of things, much more than people realize. So when you have people that are ruled by those things, the higher they are in amassing those things, right, in society, on the totem pole, so to speak, right, the pecking order, well, the higher they are, the more that they have influence on using those things, right, and projecting that on everyone else. So in a sense, they are creating a kind of reality, even though it's disreality, that's imposed on everybody else. It's a kind of projected sickness, right? You know, there's a great quote, and I believe it was the Chronicles of Narnia, The Lion, the Witch, and the Wardrobe, right? And Aslan, the lion, is standing there with the witch. And Aslan turns to her and says, "There is a deeper magic in Narnia." And then the witch screamed. Now, why am I bringing that up? Well, it's a metaphor. It's a metaphor for what we're dealing with. You've got people mimicking the real thing. They're a counterfeit of the real thing. And they're trying to create a reality, right, that is adversarial to the real thing. And because of that, it's leading to chaos, confusion, fear, right, conflict, paranoia. And that impacts everybody. Now, if you were to go and read The Lion, the Witch, and the Wardrobe, you would see from a children's story what that looks like, right? when it takes over an entire society. In this case, it would be Narnia. Right? The witch is the queen of the snows. It's always winter and never Christmas. It's all metaphor. You see, when a society comes under the influence of the spirit of lies, of deception, of arrogance, jealousy, pride, greed, what occurs is madness. It leads to madness. And that's what we're living in right now. In a sense, we are living in The Lion, the Witch, and the Wardrobe, right? The storyline. In a sense, we're living in Orwell's 1984, right? Or Huxley's Brave New World. The list goes on. We're living in a world of shadows upon shadows and disrealities upon disrealities. So, the real question here is, how do we navigate through it? How do we break the hold it has upon us? How do we get to a place where we can live lives without having to fight daily to stay sane and push back the tide of crazy that's constantly battering our thoughts, our lives, our bodies, our friends, our family, our work, our places of work, right? Without totally checking out, right? And living in a different, alternate disreality, or becoming sucked into the chaos and confusion and becoming a slave in it, into it, losing ourselves. So that's what I want you to consider, and that's what I want to start getting into. I want to talk about how it is that we can turn things around here in, if you will, Narnia, and restore Narnia to make Narnia something better than just the synthetic reality, right, that we're all living in right now. That's having very real detrimental impacts upon everybody. So think about that, and when I come back, we're going to dive into some things.
So many